Well, well, well. People are pissed at Joe Manchin. Senator Joe Manchin, the Grinch that stole Build Back Better. Bernie Sanders is madder than a teenage girl that loses her cell phone. I say don't blame Manchin. At least not just Manchin. Blame Biden. Blame Pelosi. Blame Bernie. Blame progressive Democrats. Everyone knew Manchin was against this bill from day one. Way back when it was $3.5 trillion. Way back when Bernie said there was no room for negotiation on the bill. Way back when progressive Democrats demanded the infrastructure bill be passed along with the Build Back Better agenda. Everyone knew Manchin was a fly in the ointment, the monkey in the wrench. Yet they pressed on to this inevitable outcome. Okay, so let's discuss. First, I want to play some clips from Bernie Sanders, Mr. No Negotiation, clips of him reacting to the news Joe Manchin says he will not support the Build Back Better agenda, the $1.75 trillion bill. Now remember, this bill, this agenda, this reconciliation, it's been called a lot of things. It's the reconciliation bill, the Build Back Better agenda, the Build Back Better framework. It was $3.5 trillion. It got cut down to $1.75 trillion to try and get Manchin on board, but he still says no. And Bernie was not happy. Let's hear.
Well, I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do to the people of West Virginia to tell them why he doesn't have the guts to take on the drug companies and lower the cost of prescription drugs, why he is not prepared to expand home health care. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in this country. You got elderly people and disabled people who would like to stay at home or forced into nursing homes. He's going to have to tell the people of West Virginia why he doesn't want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. I've been to West Virginia a number of times, and it's a great state, beautiful people, but it is a state that is struggling. And he's going to have to tell the people of West Virginia why he's rejecting what the scientists of the world are telling us, that we have to act boldly and transform our energy system to protect future generations from the devastation of climate change.
Let me stop it here for just a second. I don't know if Bernie Sanders or other Democrats realize every time they say we have to address climate change to protect future generations, what the people of West Virginia and some other states hear is, we're going to lose the few coal jobs we have left in this state. We're going to lose the few oil jobs we have left in this state. Protecting future generations is all good, but who is going to protect the current generation's livelihood? I'm all for transitioning off of fossil fuels, but you have to explain to people how they are going to live while you do it. Why is it so hard for Bernie and progressives to understand? Some people just want a good-paying job that will allow them to afford the things he wants to give them. Democrats say rebuilding the middle class starts with good-paying jobs, but instead they focus on spending on social programs that don't have anything to do with job creation. Let's go back to Bernie.
Well, look, we've been dealing with Mr. Manchin for month after month after month. But if he doesn't have the courage to do the right thing for the working families of West Virginia and America, let him vote no in front of the whole world.
So how do you tell somebody out there watching, wondering, how come you couldn't get Joe Manchin on board?
Well, as I've indicated, we're taking on not just Joe Manchin, we're taking on, do you know how much money the pharmaceutical industry has spent in the last year on lobbying alone? Over $300 million, plus campaign contributions, plus all kinds of advertising. Fossil fuel industry is spending a fortune. Let's not kid ourselves. We have a corrupt political system dominated by big money interests. And finally, some of us are saying, let's stand up.
Now, I think what Bernie Sanders just did through all that spit in his mouth is I think he just called Joe Manchin corrupt. If I'm not mistaken, I have no idea. I have no idea how beholden Joe Manchin is to lobbyists. Is he influenced by energy lobbyists or drug companies? Probably somewhat. How much? I don't know. But here's what Bernie fails to realize, maybe he's missing. Joe Manchin has a 61% approval with West Virginia voters, 37% disapprove. He supported, along with his Republican counterpart in the Senate from West Virginia, the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill that includes $6 billion for roads, bridges, water and sewer projects, broadband, all kinds of infrastructure projects in West Virginia. You know, the stuff that creates jobs. The people of West Virginia love that. They love that Joe Manchin, a Democrat, worked alongside a Republican senator from his state to get that done. 77% of the people of West Virginia supported that bill, the infrastructure bill. On the other hand, 61% agree with Manchin opposing Build Back Better. Now, this recent poll, which I'll post to the website, you can read it yourself. I'll post it, www.thecomparisongroup.com. I'll post it up there, and you can check out a poll from West Virginia that shows 21% of West Virginians believe Joe Manchin is not 21% believe Manchin is an automatic vote for Joe Biden, just 21%. 70% of West Virginians see him as an independent voice. 67% of the people, according to this poll, think the filibuster should continue. Another position Democrats want Manchin to fall in line on. So I have to ask, are Democrats trying to lose this seat? Do you want Joe Manchin to lose his seat in the Senate? Now, Manchin hasn't even said whether or not he's running for re-election, but whether he does or not, there are plenty of Republicans lining up to run against him. And the more he bows to the progressive left of the Democratic Party, the better chance they have of taking that seat.
So you're suggesting he doesn't have the guts to stand up for working families and to take on the moneyed interests. If Senator Manchin were here, he would say, my state is a state that voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. What I'm doing and going after and opposing this legislation will be popular. And Manchin has said he thinks all this money. He's saying all this money is going to make inflation worse.
Let me talk about it. Joe Manchin voted for a huge increase in military spending. Manchin voted for an infrastructure bill, which added $250 billion to the deficit. The truth of the matter is that if you look at the military budget, $770 billion, times that by 10 years, it is 4 times higher than what the Build Back Better plan is.
That's not an answer. That's not an answer. I wish Democrats would stop doing that. The answer to $1 trillion or $1.75 trillion or $3.5 trillion is too much money is not, well, we spend a lot of money on the military, don't we? Well, Trump passed a bill that resulted in $2 trillion in spending with the tax reform bill. That's not an answer. If my wife says to me, hey, honey, you just spent $5,000 on a hooker, and I say, oh, yeah, well, you spent $3,000 on a pair of shoes, that's not an answer. We're both wrong. Neither one of us had the money. Neither one of us should have been paying for those things. I really wish Democrats would get that point and stop doing that. When you're called out on your spending and how you're going to pay for things, it's not an answer to point to the Republicans and say, well, they spent a lot too. I had another clip, but you know what? In the interest of time, I'm not going to play it. I'll just say Jake Tapper asked Bernie about breaking this large bill down into smaller pieces and passing it that way. And I want to mention that because it taught me something. I wondered why they wouldn't do that as well. It would be smarter, in my opinion, to break it down past the most popular things like dental, vision, hearing for seniors, things like that. But Bernie answers him by saying we couldn't then pass it with a simple majority. We would need 10 Republicans on board to pass the bill in pieces, which is why it needs to be done on reconciliation as one big bill, which is a shame because trying to pass legislation like that, I think, is a mistake. It's a mistake when the Republicans did it with the tax cut bill. It's a mistake to try and do this because what you have is no consensus. What you have is partisanship. What you have is voters unhappy, because you either get 100% of Democrats or 100% of Republicans, and those bills never last. They never last. When the preceding party, or the opposing party, I should say, takes over, the first thing they're going to do is unwind everything that just got done. Both parties need to stop looking to reconciliation to pass everything and going back to getting a consensus on policy. Now, that being said, listen to me now. Listen to me. I'm about to say something important. Bernie Sanders is doing the exact same thing to Joe Manchin that he did to Hillary Clinton. Did you get that? I'm saying it again. Bernie Sanders is doing the exact same thing to Joe Manchin that he did to Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders doesn't care if he's hurting Joe Manchin's reelection chances. Manchin hasn't even said for sure if he's going to run for another term, but Bernie doesn't care if the Democrats lose the Senate, lose the House, because of this overly progressive agenda. Bernie has been whining about millionaires and billionaires for 115 years. He's been in the Senate for at least 110 years, whining about not enough help for working families, even as the federal spending on social programs is already our biggest expense in our budget. Already, before this additional $1.75 trillion. And because Joe Manchin is standing in the way of what Bernie has decided is the transformational revolution the country needs, Manchin is a coward. He's corrupt. He hates working people. But what do I know? What do I know? I'm not a Washington insider. I'm not a pundit. I'm not someone who's ever worked in politics, worked in the media, or knows very much about how things work in Washington. But I must have a certain degree of common sense, because I'm going to read to you now from an article written from someone who is in Washington, who does know how things work in Washington. This article was written on November 21st. I've done several shows. Well, I shouldn't say several. I've done a couple of shows about this Build Back Better agenda, about Bernie Sanders. One show was entitled, "Okay, Bernie Sanders, here's your answer." Go back and listen to it. The other show was entitled "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of the $3.5 trillion bill." Go back and listen to it. I did those shows months ago, probably back in July or August. This article written by political consultant and former advisor to Bill Clinton, what's his name? Douglas Schoen. Douglas Schoen, political consultant, former advisor to Bill Clinton, written November 21st of this year, roughly a month ago. The title of the article is "Democrats Are Sleepwalking Towards Electoral Disaster in 2022. That don't sound good. Now, this is an opinion piece from the Hill. I will concede that it is an opinion piece, just like this show are my opinions. But opinions or not, let me lay it down for you, see if you pick it up. Douglas Schoen says, Democrats have lost sight of how to build a broad-based coalition absent Donald Trump or a Trump-like foe. As a result, they could be on track to suffer one of the most considerable midterm losses of any party in recent history. President Biden has lost more public support during his first several months in office than any U.S. president since World War II, per Gallup. Republicans now hold a 10-point lead in the generic congressional vote, the biggest lead ever recorded for the GOP in the 40-year history of the question being asked, including ahead of the GOP waves in 2014, 2010, and 1994. It's clear that Americans are turning against the Democratic Party that they feel has become more tuned to the priorities of progressives and less focused on addressing the concerns and frustrations of the broader American electorate. Going forward, Democrats need to recognize that the broader American electorate, and especially swing state voters, are not liberals, are not woke, and do not see the world in the way that the people who staff and donate to Democratic campaigns do. The party needs to find a way to come together on a moderate agenda that is more than just a reaction to Trump and Trumpism, one that centers on controlling inflation and rising prices, fiscally responsible welfare reform and expansion, responsible tax policies, stronger borders, and growing the economy for all. If they cannot, Democrats will end up sleepwalking into an electoral disaster in 2022. I hate when people say the same exact thing I've been saying, but they say it better than me. They're just more educated and smarter than me, I guess. But it's everything I've been saying. It's everything I've been saying on this show, on this podcast about the left for months. The same exact thing. Basically, on this show, I summed up what Douglas Schoen just said in a very intelligent article by saying, Democrats, stop thinking you got the cure for what ails me. Stop thinking you got the answer to all my problems. And stop overpromising. Stop setting the expectations so high there's no chance you can meet them. Stop running around the country telling everybody you've got this transformational agenda. Because if somehow this $1.75 trillion bill does pass, I promise you my life will not be transformed. And most people's lives will not be transformed. And in 2022 or 2024, when I don't feel transformed, who am I going to blame? Who's going to lose the House? Who's going to lose the Senate? Who's going to lose the presidency? And not because Democrats did a bad job, but because you overpromise. You raise the expectations of what you're going to do, of what you think you can do, of what you think people need. Good jobs, safe schools for their kids, a George Foreman grill that doesn't break after a month. That's all people want. Democrats have to stop and ask themselves, if your agenda is so wonderful and is going to be so transformational for people, and if the Republican Party has gone so far off the rails, why are there such slim margins in Congress? How did Donald Trump get so many votes? Why are the midterm elections expected to be a major bloodbath for the Democrats? This is my Christmas gift to the Democrats. I'm going to answer these questions for you. This is my gift to you, if you choose to accept it. First, stop assuming people who vote for Republicans do so because they're stupid or uninformed or crazy. There are plenty of those qualities on both sides. I heard a caller to a liberal radio station exclaim, if they don't pass the voting reform bill, I ain't going to vote. You get that? He said, if they don't protect my vote, I won't vote. Genius. Stop listening to and forming your opinions based on what you hear from people who know absolutely nothing. And that could include a variety of sources. I'm not just talking social media or cable news. There's a lot of different sources of information that we get, and we take it like it's the gospel truth or something that we should hold up as evidence in the court of law. Listen to this.
He has such a low approval rating right now. People have lost confidence, especially the people that brought him to the dance, that brought him to the barbecue.
That's
because
right.
He, his constituency really have been Black and Latino voters. We brought him to this, to the White House.
And we made demands, and he did it.
And he's not dancing with the people that brought him. Bottom line is,
listen,
he promised the Voting Rights Act. He promised the Policing Act. He promised immigration reform.
You got 30 seconds.
And the bottom, and not to mention so many unforced errors. Why is he implementing Title 42, the Trump-era immigration policies? Why is he dragging Haitians out of this country? Why is he dragging...
With all due respect to the women of The View and Sonny Houston on The View, you know very little. They know about as much as you or I know. And that's it. Who in their right mind sits on a TV show and says, Joe Biden didn't do this, and he didn't do this, and he hasn't done that, and he didn't do that, and we brought him to the dance, we brought him to the barbecue, how come he hasn't delivered for us? How come he hasn't delivered for us? Not America, which would be wrong to say too. How come he hasn't delivered for America yet in 9 months? I mean, come on, Joe. All you did was walk into a 100-year pandemic. How come you haven't delivered for Latino rules? Why did they put that little extra on it when they... Anyway, how come you haven't delivered for Black people? How come you haven't delivered for Latinos? How come you haven't delivered for the people who put you there? Who says that? Who thinks that way? Joe Biden is not there to deliver for you. He's not there to do anything for you, Sonny Houston. First of all, Joe Biden is one man. He's one man. The government of the United States is made up of tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of men and women working every day, doing things that you take for granted, Sonny Houston, that you take for granted. She's sitting on that farting through silk, complaining about Joe Biden and what he hasn't delivered for her. How dare she? Where's my Greta Thunberg sound bite?
How dare you?
There it is. Thank you, Greta. Sonny Houston is a typical Democrat in the sense that she's trying to win an argument. She's trying to win an argument and change people's minds. And I talk about this show not being about changing people's minds. And it's not about a debate. It's about a discussion. In a debate, you're trying to win an argument and change people's minds. But how can you win an argument when you're not an expert, or at least well-informed on the subject matter? And that's exactly what Sonny Houston is. She's not an expert, and she's not well-informed on the subject matter. But yet she's trying to convince people of her point of view. Democrats, stop doing that. Stop trying to convince people of your point of view, particularly if you're not an expert on the subject matter. And before you say, well, they do it too, stop doing that. Stop saying, I know you are, but what am I? If you want to set yourself apart from the other side, you have to be better than the other side. That brings me to my next point. You have to be honest. It may not be fair, but there's little room for error when it comes to facts for the Democrats. The Republicans, not so much. They can get away with more. But Democrats, you have to be accurate and you have to be honest. Let's take a look at just some recent fact checks from Joe Biden, done by CNN. Fact checks of Joe Biden from CNN, I should say. Man, I got the worst voice for this. I've been listening to some podcasts recently, at least trying to listen to some other podcasts, particularly on the Podbreed network. That's the network I'm on. Check them out if you want to. Go to the App Store, get the Podbreed network app. Go to the website, www.podbreed.com. I was listening to a show. What's it called? It's called the X and Y Show on the Podbreed network. Man, that guy's got a nice voice. My voice is horrible. Anyway, okay. Fact checks of Joe Biden. Okay, article from CNN Politics. 4 things Biden said in November and the first day of December. This is what Biden said. We have made historic progress over the last 10 months. Unemployment is down to 4.6%, 2 years faster than everyone expected. When we started at this job, it was over 14%, Biden said. What's the fact check? Biden was wrong in 2 ways here. First, and most importantly, his phrasing created the inaccurate impression that the unemployment rate was over 14% when he started at the job. As president, in fact, the unemployment rate in January 2021, the month he was sworn in, was 6.3. It had not been above 14% since April of 2020. Second, while the unemployment rate has fallen faster under Biden than some experts had expected, he exaggerated when he said the 4.6% rate was achieved 2 years faster than everyone expected. No, that's a nitpicking one there, but okay. The article goes on to say, Biden strongly suggested that all of the historic progress in bringing the unemployment rate down from more than 14% to 4.6% happened over the last 10 months, the period in which he had been in office, but the majority of the decline occurred during the final months of Donald Trump's presidency. How about a statement about inflation? To promote his Build Back Better Act, Biden has repeatedly cited an important line from a September open letter that was signed by 17 winners of the Nobel Prize in Economics. The president said in an economic speech on Wednesday, 17 Nobel laureate winners have written a letter affirming that this bill will reduce inflationary pressure in the economy. He tweeted on November 21st, as 17 Nobel Prize winning economists have declared, my plans will ease inflationary pressures. What's the fact check? Biden left out a key phrase from the Nobel winners' letter in which they made it clear they weren't saying the president's plan would alleviate the inflation affecting the country right now. Rather, the Nobel winners wrote that Biden's agenda would alleviate long-term inflationary pressures. I've seen more and more people in the media picking up on this and calling Biden out for this. To continue saying that Nobel laureate economists are saying Build Back Better will relieve inflation and not making it clear they're talking about in the long term is very misleading, because who cares about inflation in the long term? People care about what they're paying for gas and milk right now. And Biden is making it sound like if the bill gets passed, well, inflation will be fixed. And that's not what the economists were saying. Another statement on unemployment benefits from the CNN article. Biden tweeted last week, last year there were 21 million unemployment insurance claims before the Thanksgiving holiday. Today, there were 2.4 million. It's historic progress. What's the fact check? Well, that's because the pandemic era unemployment programs expired. Millions of people could no longer file the unemployment claims, even though they were still not working. So Biden makes a misleading statement saying, hey, look how many people I've put back to work since last year. Look how the unemployment claims are down. But no, the unemployment claims were down partly, not all, but partly because people could no longer apply for that pandemic unemployment relief. The last statement, CNN fact check, was in relation to the number of small businesses that has started under his administration. I'm not going to get into that one because it's hard to explain it. I'll post that article again to the website, www.thecomparisongroup.com. You can go read it for yourself. But the point is made. Joe Biden can also be fact checked. Joe Biden can also be misleading. And you can rest assured that gets used against him. In conservative media, they do talk about those things. They do point those things out. So whether you think it's fair or not, Joe Biden and the Democrats can't be so sloppy with their messaging. You can't claim unemployment was 14% when you started out and you brought it down to 4.6%. You just can't do that. There's nothing wrong with political spin and exaggeration, but that's going just a little bit too far. Now, what other gift can I give to my Democratic friends? This is a tough one. You're not going to want to take it, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Understand and recognize, if you really want to address issues of racism and income inequality, you're going to need to listen to and acknowledge some painful truths, such as when black parents give their child the talk, quote unquote, the talk, when it comes to encounters with the police, they might want to add in, the police have a tough job. They should respect you and you should respect them. Don't be nervous. It makes them nervous. In other words, if you want police that look more like you in the black community, you need to start making police positive role models, not the enemy. On income inequality, not every person living in poverty is in that position because some rich cattle baron swindled them out of their land. This is not 1840. Opportunity abounds in this country, and some people are broke because they make bad decisions. And that's people of every race, because I know when you talk like this, people right away say, hey, are you being racist? No, I'm not. Just like when Joe Manchin says, I'm worried if we give money to people, they're going to spend it on drugs. He ain't being racist. Don't let your mind go that way. It's a legitimate concern. Doesn't have anything to do with race. There are some people who take money from the federal government and don't use it for what it's intended for. Let's not pretend there's not. And last but not least, I've said it a million times, and I'll keep saying it. I think it would do the Democrats well. There's a lot of smart people in the Democratic Party. Stop being so smart and start being more clever. Joe Biden just did it. He finally did it. Complimenting and praising Donald Trump for getting the vaccine done was clever. He wasn't trying to be smart. He was being clever. That's a clever thing to do, giving credit for that vaccine to Donald Trump. If you want to see some of these anti-vaxxers who just happen to also be Trump supporters, get the vaccine. That's one way to do it. Good job, Joe Biden. But there's other ways to be more clever instead of smart. When it comes to climate change, this argument on climate change that Democrats have been having for years now, whether or not climate change exists, whether or not climate change is caused by man. You know what I say? If I want to be clever, who cares? At this point, who cares whether climate change is real or not? Why would we need climate change to make us want to clean the air, to make us want to have clean water, to make us invest in new technology and new alternative sources of energy that would create jobs? What does any of that have to do with climate change? I don't need climate change in order to do those things. Those things are smart things to do. That's the clever argument for Democrats going forward on climate change. You're getting beat up on inflation? Oh, yeah, trust me, you are. If you don't know that you are, trust me. I listen to some conservative media. Democrats are getting beat up on inflation. And instead of trying to be smart and using words like transitory, this inflation will be transitory, a word no one understands, be clever. And remember, don't forget what the Democratic Party used to be about when Barack Obama was in office. Don't forget about TPP. Now, the Republicans are beating Joe Biden up on inflation, beating Joe Biden up on the supply chain, and saying we're too dependent on China. Well, the clever answer is, yeah, we are. I sure wish we had that Trans-Pacific Partnership. I sure wish we had TPP. That would have helped us address these supply chain issues. That would have helped us lessen our dependency on China. But we all know who killed that, don't we? So you see, I care about the Democrats. I tell you, I'm center left. I want to see more Democrats get elected. I really don't care if the Democrats are Republicans. I prefer center left to center right people. That's all. But I want to see the Democrats succeed right now if I'm comparing the two parties. But I also want to continue to see this country be the greatest country in the world. This country's always been great. It's great now, but we could be greater. We're not the greatest that we've ever been right now. We got a lot of problems right now, but it's not because of the people. In my opinion, a lot of people would disagree with that. But in my opinion, it's not because of the people, because of the everyday average citizens from both sides, Republican and Democrat, people in the middle. It's not because of us out here working hard every day. It's not because of the farmers that grow the food and feed us. It's not because of the cops and the firefighters and the EMTs and medical professionals that protect us. It sure as heck ain't because of the greatest military in the world that never fails us. Never fails us. It ain't because of the truckers that deliver it, the warehouse workers that load it, the factory workers that make it. Some people would disagree, but this country is not living up to its great potential, is not the fault of the financial system, the greatest financial system in the world that has created wealth for people to retire, for people to send kids to college, for people to innovate and start businesses. Yeah, there's some good that comes out of Wall Street. You can't even blame some of the people in government, the ones that make sure when you flush your toilet, it goes somewhere. When you buy a pack of chicken, it doesn't kill you. And when you die, hopefully it'll be on a mattress. Even the media isn't totally to blame. There's some people who are going to some dangerous, inhospitable places to bring us stories that are important, to inform us about things we need to know. Nah, it's just a handful of people. There's just a handful of people in this country that are holding us back. Some of them are politicians, yeah. But it's just a handful of people that lie, that mislead. If it'll get them one more day of fame, one more dollar in the bank, one more year in office, they'll say anything, they'll do anything. And they're holding this country back from the greatness. That's why I care. That's why I decided to do this podcast, not knowing if anyone would listen to it. Because who am I? What do I know? But that's why I have an announcement now. That's why I have an end of the year Christmas gift announcement. Would you vote for me if I was to run for office? You fools. The answer is no. How many times are you going to fall for this stuff with me? The answer is no. Don't vote for me. I'm not running for office. Trust me, I'm not running for office, ever. You know how they say never? I'm saying never. I will never run for office. You know why? Not because of any crimes I've committed in the past. Not worried about that. Have I committed any crimes? I mean, nothing worth bragging about. Have I ever killed anybody? I don't know anybody that hasn't had to tie up a few loose ends. No, I'm worried about the crimes I'll commit in the future. If I run for office and get elected, on day one, I'm going to take a bribe. On day one. If someone approaches me with a briefcase full of money and says, will you take this to vote for what we want you to vote for, I would say I would take the briefcase without the money. It's my first day. I need a briefcase. So no, it's not about me running for office. It's about other people running for office. People who are third-party people. People who are center-left, center-right, in the middle, common sense, legitimate public service people. Not a lot of the people that we have right now in our government. We got to get back to public servants. We have to seriously determine, with all the power, all the powerful people we have in this country, people who say they believe in democracy and they believe in a functioning government. With all of those powerful people, why is it we can't build a legitimate third party in this country? Well, that's the question I'm asking. It's the question I'm going to be asking in 2022. I'll still do the basic breaking news, whatever's in the news that week type of shows, but a lot of my shows will be dedicated to how do we build a legitimate third party in this country. If that's something that interests you, I'll see you in 2022. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Don't forget to go to the website. Check out those sources. www.thecomparisongroup.com. Follow me on Twitter at @comparison_show. @comparison_show. Listen to the show on the Podbreed Network. Download the Podbreed app in the app stores. Find your show on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast. Subscribe for free. Subscribe to the show for free. Set up notifications, and whenever a new show comes out, boom, there it is, ready for you to listen. I appreciate all the support, all the encouragement. I truly do. It's been a great year. I hope you stay safe. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And that's it. Goodbye.